Let's see, the political collapse is coming. DM Trey also has a video. Let me see what that one is.
We have an update on the story.
I want to do the collapse. We can look at the other one another time.
For the past couple of years, I've said that the
Ooh, tiny box. Maybe expand the box that you're in. That'd be good. Also, it's weird that it's over here. I'm used to stream stuff being on the other side. Be on this side of the screen like I am, damn it. Conform your streams to my personal preferences.
the culture war, whatever you want to call it, is going to escalate. And who knows? People might look back in 100 years, and this could be the dawn of a new civil war, as some people have called it. The rhetoric has been flying.
That would be bad. That would be bad. Civil wars are bad, Tim.
Around quite a bit. Even recently, people have been talking about the potential for a second civil war. I think that's a bit too hyperbolic. I don't know what you could call what's happening, but maybe complete social upheaval, massive change, who knows? There's a lot of people who go around saying empires only last a few hundred years. I don't believe that's actually true, you know, but people talk.
That's a good question. What's the longest lasting empire? Longest lasting empire. The Roman Empire makes sense. The 10 most long-lived empires in history. Let's check this out. From HowStuffWorks.com. The Portuguese Empire for 584 years. Ottoman Empire for 623 years. The Khmer Empire for... Let's have just... From 802 AD to 1432. Holy shit, that's a long one. Although it only began there. I guess it doesn't necessarily mean it became an actual... Ethiopian Empire began around 1270 AD until 1895. Canem, Holy Roman Empire. There's a joke among historians that says, the Holy Roman Empire, it wasn't holy, it wasn't Roman, and it wasn't an empire. The Holy Roman Empire was seen as a revival of the Western Roman Empire as a political counter to the Roman Catholic Church. The name, however, comes from the fact that, while the emperor was chosen by electors, he was crowned by the Pope in Rome. The empire lasted from 962 to 1806 AD. Everyone I've seen streams on the left, damn. I guess I'm just the weirdo then. Republic of Venice, 1100 years. The Kush Empire from 1070 BC to 350 AD. And then the Roman Empire, 1480 years. Goddamn, Rome. That's some crazy shit.
About it. I want to talk about some of the issues that I believe are causing and caused by this rapid transformation we're seeing in society. We're seeing news media collapse. We're seeing the spread of new technology. Social media is dramatically changing how things function. And it's resulting in this weird tribalism. One of the things I want to highlight today specifically is how the media exists in two realities. And they probably know, but don't seem to care. And what ends up happening is then you have the right and the left, however you want to break up the two, larger factions, where they see...
We have the right and the corporatist center left, at best. There isn't really any large, actually leftist media outlets. There's independent creators, but not very many, if any, large media empires that are advocating for actual left-leaning positions.
The same screen with two different movies, to quote Scott Adams, or to paraphrase Scott Adams, which we'll go over that too. But this, I want to talk about this because I saw this tweet from Eric Weinstein, who said, in 2001, I began to believe that the financial world was coming apart and started giving talks. But it didn't year after year. Around 2005, I lost my conviction waiting. He says, at NN Talib told me to stick it out, but I lost my nerve. In 2019, I think the political world is coming apart. And what exactly does that mean, the political world is coming apart? Well, what's interesting about Eric Weinstein's tweet, and he does go on to elaborate, is that in 2000...
Who is Eric Weinstein? He's not related to... Eric Ross Weinstein is an American managing director of Thiel Capital, Peter Thiel's investment firm, a position he's held since 2015. He and his brother Brett Weinstein coined the term intellectual dark web to refer to an informal group of pundits. Jesus Christ. Gross.
2008, we know. The financial world did face, we were hit by the Great Recession. Something did happen, and it was devastating to a lot of people. We're still here. The world carries on. So I want to make sure that when we talk about whatever it is that's coming in the escalation of the culture war, a lot of people seem to think it's going to be a post-apocalyptic wasteland with like roving bands of zombies or something. No, 10 years will go by and we'll be back into whatever system we are. But something is definitely coming. And I believe that's what Eric Weinstein is trying to say when he says, in 2019, I think the political world is coming apart. But I do want to make some important distinctions. In finance, things will change, but so long as society is cohesive, it can rebound. We've seen many depressions. But when it comes to politics, these things kind of escalate to violence and things that can be really dangerous. But Eric Weinstein was asked, what does coming apart mean in this view? And he said, the political world coming apart means an essentially complete inability to agree what happened, what is happening, and what must happen. The two things that are still working well are maintenance, e.g. the grid, banking, and traffic still work for now, and relative nonviolence.
Okay, now when we're talking about stuff like this, thank you Hermit Crab Cakes for following. I do believe that both politically and in terms of news, people exist in sort of two different worlds. But I would argue that one party, if we're talking about this in terms of party politics, is closer to reality than the other. One, for instance, is recognizing the danger of the global pandemic that's killed over 500,000 people, right? Let me even look. Let me just look in the States, not even worldwide. U.S. death from COVID. We're up to almost 160,000 deaths. So people on the left, middle left media, is saying, hey, we need to have mask mandates and to shut down and to try and keep things under control because cases are going up because people are not listening to this. And then you have people on the right who are saying, y'all can't take away my freedom. This mask doesn't do nothing. Which group is more congruous with reality? We don't have a problem where we have two sides that are divorced from reality in different ways. Although, I would say that even stuff like MSNBC is divorced from reality in the sense that they're very corporate media still. We have people who are more or less trying to accurately appraise and understand society and the reality of the world that's going on around us. And then we have Looney Tunes conspiracy theorists on the right who are backed by the fucking president, who are just pretending like reality doesn't exist. This is an issue of people on the right, not necessarily people on the left.
But I'll stop there and add a caveat as well. I think you should say relative maintenance, because we have seen many people getting removed from public discourse, banned on YouTube, and censorship has dramatically escalated, as well as the double standards, which we'll get into. One of which, just to give you a reference, is the Daily Beast published the name of a man who made a meme, or allegedly made a meme. We don't even know if he did. That was totally fine by journalism and Twitter standards. James O'Keefe published the name of a woman who was censoring a conservative group on Pinterest. His video on YouTube was removed for privacy violations, and Twitter took down the tweet for privacy violations as well. A clear double standard in that there are the aristocrats and the peasants. Now, I know that aristocrat peasant isn't the perfect way to describe it.
I would call it hyperbolic and hysterical.
There are certain groups that have technological and institutional control, and because of this, I would say maintenance is relatively working, but we are beginning to see cracks in the systems of banking. I published a story about the journalist who reached out to several banks, and then ultimately, a day later or so, we saw the Proud Boys, one of the Proud Boys, get his personal bank account shut down.
The Proud Boys are white supremacists. I'm not gonna shed a single tear for those fuckers.
So the grid is under attack. Will this escalate? I personally believe it will. And we've seen a dramatic escalation in the past few days.
I just want to warn you, the last time we had a civil war, the people who are on the side of white supremacy lost. Just for the record.
With censorship, after the Vox adpocalypse, it's gotten
Did not go well for them.
way worse. The issue is that it's a massive shock to the system. If these things were happening very slowly, people probably wouldn't care. But it's happening so damn fast, people are going to start freaking out. But we'll see. Let's read on. Eric says milkshaking, for example, is a performative rehearsal for something else.
Someone threw a milkshake at me. This is practice for the Civil War. I know, like when you see, teen comedies from the 80s and the 70s and a food fight starts, I just think, these poor children preparing themselves for Civil War.
It's exploratory comic violence for now. Organized intersectional jury nullification will soon be tried to take down the justice system. It's a fast-acting, cheap attack that cannot be
It will be interesting to see as we continue to discuss things like jury nullification. For those of you who don't know, jury nullification was written on by some people, like I think Thomas Jefferson wrote on it. But basically, jury nullification is the concept that if you are on a jury, even if someone is clearly guilty, if you find the law to be morally repugnant, let's say someone's getting put up and maybe facing 10 years in prison for some stupid pot charge. Non-violent crime, they just had some pot on them and they could go to jail for 5 years. They could have all the evidence in the world, and as a jury member, you can still vote non-guilty. That's jury nullification. It's saying, I don't care what the evidence is, more or less, not guilty. This person isn't going to jail for this. And in the past, this hasn't been a widely understood or known about concept. But, like, with the internet, stuff like this spreads. So I do wonder how the justice system in this country is going to move forward with people having the understanding that they can acquit someone because they personally disagree with what they're being charged with. You know? Because that sounds well and good with, like, the example I said, where, like, someone's getting put away and wasting everyone's time and money for some pot charge. But let's say someone's, and this is an extreme example, but I'll go with it because, like, let's say someone on a jury's a pedophile, and someone's being tried for a pedophilic crime, and they say, well, I say not guilty, I don't care. What do you do then? You can't try the person again. You can't even necessarily call a mistrial because of that. So it's going to be interesting when people start more or less deciding guilt or innocence in a trial based upon not the facts at hand, but their personal moral compass. How does the justice system deal with that? I don't know.
Easily countered. Well, let's do this. First, let's address the first point. Milkshaking, for example, is a performative rehearsal for something else.
A lot of nullification happened with abolitionists on juries during slavery. Yeah, and that's a good thing. But it's like, what do you do when it's in a situation where someone has committed a morally repugnant crime or clearly broken the law, but someone just disagrees? They certainly are within their rights to do that as a jury member. But what do you do if the system of justice breaks down because so many people, like out of 12 people, you're going to find one person who probably disagrees with whatever the thing is. Unless it's, something like, I don't know, beating your wife or a husband or something. But even then, what if someone on the jury is someone who is a domestic abuser and they want to look out for each other? Just a thought.
Else. When you throw a milkshake at someone, what you're telling them is that they're exposed and they can do whatever they want to you.
I don't think it's that deep, Tim. I think people are just saying, haha, you're Sargon, you're a piece of shit. Now you got ice cream on you, haha. That seems about as deep as it goes.
Now, of course, there are many people saying it's just a milkshake, it's silly, they're trying to humiliate you.
Correct. And that would be the accurate appraisal of what's going on when people get milkshaked.
But this also does expose the vulnerability. that if these people want to go out and politic and talk to people, they are exposed, and it can get dangerous. And the rhetoric...
Oh no, I'm gonna get the ice cream on me. It's dangerous.
Absolutely does.
Hey, if someone advocates for, like, weird white supremacist worldviews, and the worst that happens to them is they get some ice cream on them, they should consider themselves incredibly lucky.
Does escalate. Recently, a comedian, Joe Brand, said something to the effect that milkshakes were pathetic, and why weren't...
Jury nullification requires unanimous vote by a jury. Just like any verdict, one person disagreeing would just result in a hung jury. But hung juries will often, depending on the crime, they won't necessarily try the case again because it's so expensive. So it can fuck shit up, even if it's just like one person. Of course, certain crimes I think only require a majority. Like some places, like 9 out of 12 will do it in terms of a guilty verdict, but...
people getting battery acid.
Depends upon the crime and the location.
I understand that that is meant to be a joke, right? But I also think it's extremely reckless because there have been many other people who have made similar jokes who have been attacked and defamed for doing so and banned. Now, Joe Brand is certainly getting it from conservatives right now. Nigel Farage criticized her because the joke may have crossed the line. Whether or not she actually wants someone to get battery acid and throw it is besides the point. The rhetoric is taking the step. Maybe it'll just be a joke, maybe it won't. But it starts with milkshakes. Milkshakes at first were a joke. They were a meme. Even Burger King got in on the joke.
It still is a joke. People are still throwing milkshakes at you as like a goof, as like a, hey, fuck you. But like, you know, people have been throwing food at each other that they disagree with for a really long time. Like, rotten fruit. That was a fun thing in the past that people did. So, not exactly new. It's just that now you can do it with a delicious frosty beverage instead of with rotting fruit.
But then we saw a wave of milkshakings happen, and people started doing it.
Milk shaking. Let's look at some people getting milkshaked. Nigel Farage. I know there was a Sargon one. Oh, boy, Sargon. There's Farage getting it. There's Sargon getting fish thrown. Let's see if there's a video of it. Milkshake thrown at UKIP candidate for 4th time this week.
These sort of things happen when people are getting attacked in their own.
Whoa! Whoa!
They got Sargon good with that one. That's like all over him. The music is appropriate. That's about the tone that milkshaking invokes.
And now we see the escalation of the joke. Acid attacks are already a serious problem in the UK. I don't think it's a good idea to even joke about this because you are it's a step. It's incremental. But if you're a politician in the UK, you have to now be worried that they're joking about splashing acid on you. The second point that we'll get...
Aren't these right-wingers always the ones that are like, it's just a joke, bro, freedom of speech? Ironic that they're so hypocritical.
Back to that tweet in a second. The second point made by Eric Weinstein is intersectional jury nullification. Well, in this story from the New York Times, this man in Arizona helped some illegal immigrants. He provided them shelter at
cool.
his camp, is my understanding. And a jury couldn't decide whether or not to convict him.
Good.
And so it was a mistrial. I'm not saying this is a perfect example or anything like that. Mistrials absolutely happen.
Oh no, helping someone who helped illegal immigrants? The horror.
But jury nullification, for those that don't know, is when a juror decides not to convict because they feel that this person shouldn't be punished for what they did. And therein lies the problem. Did this man provide harbor and aid and shelter to an illegal immigrant? I believe the answer to that question is 100% yes. Everyone understands that. The question then becomes for the jury whether or not he actually committed a crime in doing so. And unfortunately, the jury could not agree.
This would be like being like, a jury nullified. This isn't how it worked, obviously, because Nazi Germany was, fascist. But imagine that they had a jury trial similar to America. Oh, God. It's not up to the jury to decide whether or not it was okay for him to harbor Anne Frank and their family in the attic. The jury just has to decide if he did it or not. Like, fuck off. Fuck off with that shit. The jury nullification, well complicated, I'm glad it exists.
The government put on its best case with the full force of countless resources, and 12 jurors could not agree with that case. Mr. Warren read in a brief statement. In the time since I was arrested in January 2018, no fewer than 88 bodies were recovered from the Arizona desert. The government's plan in the midst of this humanitarian crisis, policies to target undocumented people, refugees, and their families, prosecutions to criminalize humanitarian aid, kindness, and solidarity. Politically loaded language that falls on one side of the political debate. Was he aiding illegal immigrants entering the country, or was he providing humanitarian aid to refugees? The way you frame it will change how someone views the same screen. Again, to Scott Adams' point about two movies on the same screen. So again, it's not a perfect example. Well, I believe what Eric...
And you're watching the movie where you decide to demonize people because of where they're coming from. You're watching the wrong movie, friendo. Please skip over to the one where you have human kindness and understanding for people different than yourself who just want to build a better life, you fucking dweeb.
...is getting at is that there will come a time where someone will say, I don't care if the person did or didn't do it. I don't want the government to have power over this group. And then we will see intersectional jury nullification. Weinstein goes on to say a rerun of 2008 or worse style crash would require skill, expertise, discretion, and will to counter. But most of all, trust and leadership. Yet there's not one single figure who commands trust at the moment. We put no one aside, no general or admiral, no one is above the fray. In the end, when people do not command respect, they're replaced by things. Anyone waving a gun will have our respect until we can disarm him. Similarly, the bar of gold, the compromat video, the private key to the hard drive that was attacked with encryption, respect is transferred. But this hasn't much happened yet. Everything is still limping along, but we are using our time before what is next in the oddest of ways. Myself, most of all, I need to change that. I'm going to try, at least this time around, make up for 2008, be well. Make up for 2008. And I thought, what does Eric mean by this? And he's a very smart guy. He's not, the herald of truth and knowledge, but he is a smart guy, and he does bring good insight and wisdom. And I think what he's saying is, he lost his conviction in 2005 because nothing happened, but then sure enough, 2008 did happen. There was a major financial crash, which was devastating. We're still here.
Which was caused by people like him. He worked at Bain Capital, you fucker. Like, what?
Life carried on. But it may be that we're in the wake of this problem. Many of these young people, many people my age, millennials, following the financial crisis, struggled to find work. They went to school, their debt increased, and they still haven't necessarily recovered from this. The economy is better than ever. But that false start for many young people.
The economy isn't better than ever if most people are struggling. It just means that rich people are able to successfully benefit from the labor of others. That's what's happening when they say the economy's good. People are still unemployed. People aren't able to find housing. People aren't able to get good jobs with upward mobility. The economy is not good. I don't give a fuck what the GDP is.
People has left them saddled with debt. In response, many of them turn to socialism, and they turn to far-left policy and agenda. And this paves the way for a fracturing in the American psyche.
Oh no, the horror! Left-leaning positions actually being showcased and understood within the American populace instead of being demonized for being communism!
So let's
What a horror.
do this. Who knows what's going to happen? I honestly don't. But I do think we will see escalation. That's all I can really predict, is that things will get worse because it hasn't gotten to the point where people have actually said enough. Even after Charlottesville, people have said, no, more. And they used that rhetoric to incense and to increase. We haven't seen a point at which both sides say we can't do this anymore. So I want to show some stories. The first, we have this one, which I already referenced, the man who was, it was a mistrial. Jurors couldn't decide. We saw the issue of the battery acid joke. Then we have this. The battery acid joke, now we're going to move into something I want to talk about in terms of the double standards and the two realities. Count Dankula made a joke on YouTube just to a small group of like his 12 subscribers. He got charged. He got arrested. He was convicted. And they actually...
Was he in Germany? I forget the specifics of the Count Dankula thing. Count Dankula. Scottish. April 2016, he posted a video on YouTube of his girlfriend's pet pug Buddha titled, "Mate, your dog's a Nazi." At the start of the video, he says, "My girlfriend is always ranting and raving about how cute and adorable her wee dog is, so I thought it would turn him into the least cute thing I could think of, which is a Nazi." In the video, the dog, promoted by the command Sig Heil, raises his right paw in the manner of a Nazi salute, watches a speech by Adolf Hitler, and responds immediately when Meekin asks if he wants to, quote, "gas the Jews," end quote. It ends with images of Hitler and Buddha depicted with a toothbrush mustache similar to Hitler's. Meekin was arrested on suspicion of breaching the Communications Act of 2003. On 19th of March 2018, Meekin was convicted of breaching the act by Sheriff Derek O'Carroll at Airdrie Sheriff Court. The court ruled that Meekin's claim that the video was a joke intended for his girlfriend, quote, lacked credibility, as Meekin's girlfriend did not subscribe to the YouTube channel which the video was posted. Can't even get your girlfriend to subscribe to your YouTube channel. That's a little sad. On the 23rd of April 2018, Meekin was sentenced to a fine of £800 with no prison sentence. Communications Act of 2003. The act, which came into force in the 25th of July 2003, supersedes the Telecommunications Act of '84. The new act was the responsibility of Culture Secretary Teresa Jowell. It consolidated the telecommunications and broadcasting regulations in the UK, introducing the Office of Communications as the new industry regulator. On the 28th of December 2003, it gained its full regulatory powers, inheriting the duties of the Office of Telecommunications. Among other measures, the Act introduced legal recognitions of community radio and paved the way for full-time community radio service in the UK, as well as controversially lifting many restrictions on cross-media ownership, and also made it illegal to use other people's Wi-Fi broadcast connections without their permission. In addition, the legislation also allowed, for the first time, non-European entities to wholly own a British television company. So it seems like they have certain restrictions on, like, the ability to do, like, Nazi shit. Somewhere.
took the money from his bank account. Why? Because he made a joke.
He's gone full Nazi since then. What a shock.
This woman made a joke that was actually could be considered by some people offensive and a direct incitement to violence by saying milkshakes are pathetic. Where's the battery acid? It wasn't in that order. She said something about maybe I have the quote because I want to make sure I get it right. But she said something about throwing battery acid instead of milkshakes. And why bother with a milkshake when you could get some battery acids? And then went on to say, that's just me, I'm not going to do it, but I think milkshakes are pathetic. To me, it sounds like she's saying you're not doing enough. But what Dankula did with making his dog do a silly trick was arrestable. Let's move on. This is a really good example of one screen and two movies. Remember when Jim Acosta allegedly grabbed or was grabbed by the White House aide? This is a really simple example I can think of in the past year where people couldn't even see the same reality. Okay, we all saw the same video and no one knew what was real. Did the aide grab the microphone from Acosta, or did Acosta chop the arm of the aide? No one could agree. I mean, obviously you had two sides, one saying he did, one saying he didn't. But there were people saying, you're absolutely wrong. I don't understand. Are you nuts? He clearly hit her. And then the other people saying, what are you talking about? She's trying to yank the mic from him. And I don't understand how you can actually, there's no way to describe that situation to people. You will just have two sides saying, no, you are wrong, period, and nothing will change my mind. Now, this isn't that important. I don't think it really matters all that much whether
or
not,
or
Acosta did or didn't put his arms on. Video about, as I mentioned, you.
Okay,
no
you're not even going to play
agree.
it. Why bring it up if you're not going to fucking play it? Let's see. How do you spell that? Jim Acosta.
Thank you, Mr. President. One of the statements that you made in the tail...
It happened a few days ago, and...
They're hundreds of miles away, though. They're hundreds and hundreds of miles away. That's
I
not an
think you
invasion.
should, honestly, I think you should let me run the country, you run CNN,
All right.
and if you did it well, your ratings
Let
would
me
be
ask,
much better.
if I may ask...
Jesus Christ, the President of the United States acts like a fucking 12-year-old on Twitter.
That's another question. Mr. President, if I may ask
Peter,
one
go
other
ahead.
question, are you worried...
That's enough. That's
Mr.
enough.
President, I was going
enough.
to ask one of the other folks...
That's enough.
Pardon me, ma'am. Mr.
Excuse
President,
me.
She grabs for the mic.
That's enough.
Mr. President, I had one other
Peter,
question,
let's
if
go.
I may ask, on the Russia investigation. Are you concerned that you may have...
I'm not concerned.
Are you worried about indictment?
Having you working for them.
Mr. President, it's coming down in this investigation.
She grabbed for the mic. What about it?
Mr. President...
I'll tell you what, CNN
Oh, there's a version of it that has the chop sped up. Of course.
should be ashamed of itself, having you working for them. Go ahead.
Let me ask...
Much better. That's enough.
Pardon me, ma'am. Mr.
Excuse
President...
me. That's enough.
So basically, right-wing media completely misrepresented what happened, and he's blaming both sides. No, dude. The right completely misrepresented that shit. You can go see it. There's a reason you didn't show the video.
How, even with video in front of you, no one will agree. Well, let's move on. Some other
Because
stories.
one of the videos was apparently edited, you dumb fuck.
How about, as I mentioned earlier, the Daily Beast doxed a guy for just for posting a video of Nancy Pelosi. This was acceptable. In the media sphere, in journalism, they praised him for doing this. They were saying, good job to this, I believe his name is Kevin Poulsen, for publishing the story and finding out who this guy was. It was a private citizen with no power who published a silly video of Nancy Pelosi, and they said it was newsworthy. But sure enough, what happens when James O'Keefe publishes an employee of a tech firm?
Because James O'Keefe is a fucking liar who consistently puts out propaganda material. James O'Keefe is a shitbag who lies about things that he films and then edits in misleading ways.
Censoring a conservative group, which is newsworthy. This is a massive multi-billion-dollar corporation. Well, YouTube deleted his video.
Yeah, James O'Keefe's a fucking liar, a provocateur, and a propaganda producer, and not a very good one.
And Twitter deleted the tweet. I believe Twitter suspended his account. Clearly, we have two realities forming, where even though the...
Thanks, MigUR. Thanks for coming to the stream. See you later. Hopefully see you tomorrow for Tinfoil Tuesday.
We have the journal...
Or no, wait. Is today Sunday? Monday? No, yeah. See you tomorrow for Tinfoil Tuesday.
journalist class and whatever they represent are fine with them using certain tactics and angry with other people. The way that Will Chamberlain of Human Events described it is aristocrats and peasants. And that's why he said Carlos Maza is allowed to incite violence, like the milkshaking thing, but you're not allowed to make fun of him.
Throwing milkshakes at me is literally inciting violence. But actively being part of a white nationalist group, that's free speech. Genius. A few seconds ago, Bella Chow 2020, thank you for following. Welcome to the stream.
Crowder is a peasant. He's an outsider. He's not in the media class. So when he criticizes Maza, it's the worst of the worst offenses you could commit. But when Maza says, go and throw milkshakes at people, not taken down by Twitter. So let's do another a little compare and contrast here. James O'Keefe, investigative journalism. We have uncovered Silicon Valley censorship. suspended. Carlos Maza, take a milkshake and throw it at somebody. Totally fine. It's beyond just a double standard when it's the same circumstance. It
not
even
the
goes
same
to the point where
circumstance.
Carlos Maza can advocate for, admittedly, low-tier violence, but still physical conflict, and it's fine. Twitter won't take it down. This one might be my favorite. Today, or yesterday, we saw this story published by Jared Holt. Right-wing publications launder an anti-journalist smear campaign. The problem? Well, he's upset that Eowyn Lenihan, who at one point was a troll on Twitter, published this crime web connection of various journalists and their connections to Antifa. Now, I approached the story with a bit of a grain of salt and advised everyone else to do so as well, because basically what he did, apparently, was he found that many people on Twitter had connections with Antifa accounts. But that
It's almost like smart people who work for tech firms are anti-fascist because fascism is bad.
that could just mean they're journalists tracking Antifa. In fact, many of the interactions could have been negative. One of these journalists could have said something.
Antifa, as they like to call it, anti-fascist, isn't a centralized organization. It's not even like Black Lives Matter, where there are, like, chapters, and then they, like, answer to some... No, it's not like that. Antifa literally just stands for anti-fascist. I am an anti-fascist because I am anti-fascism. If you are someone who thinks fascism is bad, you are Antifa. You are anti-fascist. There is no Antifa building where all the anti-fascists get together and go, ah, ha, 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 we will stop fascism with milkshakes. That's not how it works.
Something like, I don't like you. And the insinuation simply because they have interacted that there is a collaboration between the two is incorrect. But I do think it's worth pointing out because I did highlight several of the journalists that I can confirm do work with Antifa. So, you know, it is what it is.
Do work with Antifa. Please explain what you mean by that. I'd love to hear your explanation by what you mean work with Antifa when there is no Antifa, like, central organization. There could be out there that I'm unaware of, some small organizations that use that as a title, but there is no unifying Antifa. It's not a thing. It's just a descriptor for anyone who's anti-fascism.
The point is, the CJR, the Columbia Journalism Review, publishes this story of outrage that no one fact-checked this dataset. The dataset clearly isn't real. There's no proof. And Jared Holt was upset because he reached out to Quillette. And Quillette said they wouldn't answer an activist's questions. They'd be willing to talk to a journalist. And so, if they're going to publish this, they're essentially just another right-wing outlet laundering a smear campaign. But what's really funny about it is that the Columbia Journalism Review quite literally did the exact same thing. We talk about double standards a lot. And the reason I'm moving on to highlighting these stories is that I feel like this will absolutely precipitate some kind of escalation. What do you think's going to happen when conservatives see the evidence from James O'Keefe? Yes, a whistleblower came out.
James O'Keefe has never put forward anything that's credible as evidence. That guy fabricates shit all the fucking time. Oh god, it was a long time ago. I investigated him a little bit when we were doing a movie review. I don't remember. But I think his organization was getting a decent bit of money from either the Trump campaign or it was like a Russian firm. I don't remember. It was a long time ago. But like James O'Keefe is a complete shitbag propagandist. Do not believe anything James O'Keefe ever says.
And said straight up, they're 100% censoring the pro-life conservative argument. The evidence comes out, so Twitter and YouTube took his content down? Well, what can you do? It is a rapid development. It's not something that happens slowly over time. This is a massive shock very quickly. The Columbia Journalism Review in 2018 ran fake news. The Data and Society Alternative Influence Report had no data, no methodology, and it was quite literally just one woman who watched a bunch of YouTube videos and then drew lines between people. The rigorousness of this research, I mean, in fact, there's none. There's no research. It's quite literally someone who watched random videos and in the report drew lines between me and people I've never met before.
Like you do with people who label themselves as anti-fascists and calling them Antifa. Weird.
And it actually said we collaborated, guested, or hosted. But that was verifiably false. I have never interacted with half the people she claimed I did. What happens when Eowyn Lenihan actually does see connections between journalists and Antifa? He jumps the gun on what it means, absolutely. I absolutely will criticize the publication, but at least there's some kind of methodology behind it, and it wasn't just one random person making random lines with a marker or something. Yet the Columbia Journalism Review views the world in such a way that their standards are, we can smear you, you better not smear us. Where do you think this goes? I don't care about the idea of a power differential or whatever. I just want to highlight plain as day, there is a dramatic divide, and it might not be left or right, I don't know how you describe it, but there are...
Reality and irreality. You exist in a fake reality constructed by right-wing news outlets and oligarchs who've decided to tell you that black people asking for rights are going to tear down the fabric of civilization. Meanwhile, the president is taking part in fascist activities. So please, if you'd like to come back to reality, we'd love to have you. But, you know, until such a time, maybe lighten up on the both sides are distorting reality argument, because that is demonstrably false.
At least two growing factions who do not see the same world. Some who view they have a right to use certain tactics that others don't, but regardless, the split is there. It's not getting better, it is getting worse. Is Eric Weinstein right? I don't know. But he thinks there's going to be some kind of, you know, that the political space is coming apart. What does that mean? I really don't know. But I do think it's going to get bad. People's livelihoods are already being affected. Their YouTube channels deleted. Their income is stripped from them. Their businesses were shut down by Chase. More than one person. Several people now. So I'll do a quick reference on...
Hey, you want to know how not to get fucked over by social media? Don't advocate for white supremacist worldviews. That'd be great. That usually helps. Just in case you're wondering what the key is.
Scott Adams' comment. Two movies on one screen. I don't necessarily want to read through his entire post, but I definitely wanted to, you know, make sure I included his actual blog. And I think there's no better example of what he's talking about than the Jim Acosta situation. We all watched the same video, but we came to different conclusions, and nothing.
And yours were wrong. The White House aide came and tried to take the microphone from him, and he tried to keep it. That's all that happened. You stop watching edited videos from right-wing news sources because they're feeding you lies.
Nothing will change that. We'll move on now to some other points. This is another good example of two realities that we're living in, and the elitism and the snootiness of whoever, whatever. In this story from the Daily Wire, Ash Scow writes, Vox writer confused after Trump's tractor internet claims. Iowa senator sets the record straight. So I'll point this out. Aaron Rupar said, beyond parody, Fox Business cuts away from Trump's speech right after he laments bizarrely that tractors can't hook up to the internet. Many people quoted this tweet. You can see it's got 6,408 likes. And they started talking all this smack about Donald Trump, acting like how, you know, they were so smart and they understood exactly.
I imagine he's somehow referencing the fact that, like, John Deere tractors will get, like, over-the-air updates and stuff, like the modern ones. They also sort of lock you out of fixing your own equipment. It's really fucked up. I assume he heard about that at some point and then misspoke horribly about it because Donald Trump is terrible at expressing what he means to say. Like, he expresses himself very poorly. I think we all understand this about Donald Trump.
Exactly what was being said. They will not have their minds changed no matter what. They do not exist in the same sphere. They are in a different reality. What ends up happening is, well, let me just clarify, they're wrong. Of course, Joni Ernst...
You gonna play the clip or no, like earlier?
...clarified, this may be news to folks in New York and D.C., but in Iowa, we know internet-connected farm equipment is critical for precision agriculture. And it's one of the reasons why I'm working to improve rural broadband speeds across speeds and access. Trump's comment was in no way beyond parody. There's no real way to say that. The tractors should be connecting to the internet. Cars connect to the internet. My car from 2012 connects to the internet.
Yeah, I don't disagree with this one. Tractors do connect to the internet, the new ones nowadays. They get, like, updates from the companies in their software. Similar like Teslas do the same thing. They get these over-the-air updates. So, there are plenty of things to point out Donald Trump being stupid on, but he probably just, like, explained himself very poorly here.
They've had cell phones built into them for a long time. The Internet of Things is very common. Yet, we saw many people on the left running rampant with, I know better and nothing will change my mind. And this narrative makes people double down when Trump clearly said something that makes complete sense to the rural community and many conservatives and anybody who wanted to just look into it. This is normal. What we're seeing here with this situation is not ridiculous in that people in cities and urban areas often do misunderstand each other. But it's another example that I wanted to highlight. And we'll go on because I now want to get to why I think we are getting to the point where something may be happening. Something dangerous. Maybe a civil war. I don't know what you'd call it. In this interview from Brigham Young, we have a researcher, excuse me. Let me make sure I get his name right. It's a Brigham Young historian.
I wouldn't necessarily trust someone from Brigham Young University, but alright.
And his name is Silber. I don't want to dig through here and find whatever. We're not going to deal with that. I just want to pull one quote, that's why. Silber says, "It would have to be something else to call this a civil war. That would indicate a willingness on the part of the masses of people to engage in violence against their political enemies. That happened in the 1860s in part because people had come to see their political opponents in extreme, even demonic ways, and found it impossible to find any middle ground. Maybe
there's no middle ground for whether or not you want slaves. The South seceded because they wanted to keep slaves. That's monstrous. They were monstrous.
Our politics and culture are moving in that direction, but I don't see it yet. Well, I would encourage Mr. Silber to follow any of the rhetoric of the culture war over the past few years. Some say it started with Gamergate. It hasn't stopped.
Well, kids, let me tell you about the Second American Civil War. It started with ethics in gaming journalism. One time, this female game developer made a little web clicky thing about depression, and we all read out, And anyway, we voted for a racist guy, and he started Civil War II, and we all got our asses kicked yet again. As it turns out, racists are apparently real bad at fighting in civil wars. So, maybe don't do it.
It has only gotten worse over the past several years, and now we're at the point of mass censorship where even an investigative journalist like O'Keefe, whether you like him or not, had his content taken down for privacy violations, but the Daily Beast was allowed to stay up. Yes, there is a stark divide between people. Notch, the game developer.
Notch is a piece of shit. Notch is a transphobic piece of shit. I don't know if he's also racist, but it wouldn't surprise me. Let's see what Notch has said. Notch. Is he racist? Let's find out. The creator of Minecraft tweeted some dumb stuff about race. Oh, great. He says, it's okay to be white. Notch, no one says it's not. It's not okay to celebrate privilege, however. Privilege is a made-up metric used to silence and repress. We are all different, and that's okay. Alright, millionaire. Whatever you have to say. Billionaire? Is not your billionaire now? Believing in race-based privilege needed to be oh, God. Notch. Transphobia. Let me see if I can find some tweets from him. Celebrate fucking body dysphoria, making it illegal to use the wrong pronouns. They are the ones using the wrong pronouns. Fucking hell. Nope. Not the case, you fucking asshole. Yikerinos, comparing trans, gender dysphoria to an eating disorder. Fucked up. There's Notch with a sword. You're absolutely evil if you want to help encourage delusion. What happened to not stigmatizing mental illness? There is no love in pretense. There is no you when you appease. He's talking about people being trans. Notch is a shitbag. That's what I'm trying to say. Creator of Minecraft,
who made Minecraft, tweeted several times actually, "Yup, the left is evil. Most on the left are not evil. They just think they're stuck there. Thinking they're stuck there also applies to the right, which will turn that evil to in time there are no sides."
Wow, a transphobia person who's racist did a both sides are the same argument? I'm shocked. It's almost like the whole both sides are the same thing is incredibly disingenuous and is pushed by people on the right who want to equivocate how awful they are towards people on the left being, I don't know, annoying or something? I don't know.
The idea that the left has become evil or is evil has been getting worse. And they actually say the same thing about Trump, but to a more absurd degree, referring to Trump supporters as a certain group of people from World War II that don't really exist anymore.
The word you're looking for is Nazis, and Nazis do exist. Have you heard the term neo-Nazi? They like to go by alt-right now, but, yeah. When we say Nazi, everyone knows what that means colloquially.
They call everyone in the middle far right. And then sure enough, you see people who are moderate and to the right, conservative, calling the left evil. Not everybody, not all the time. But I'm highlighting this because this was a year ago. It's only getting worse. And I ask you, what do you think will happen when Trump wins a second term? Because he will.
I really hope he doesn't. It'd be real great if he wouldn't.
Trump is on track for a 2020 landslide.
The latest polls don't necessarily show that.
It's from March. Economic models point to a Trump blowout in 2020, but a faltering economy or giant scandal could change everything.
Uh-oh! Uh-oh, Timmy. This was in June 2019. Do I have a surprise for you? Thanks, Rona. Thanks, Rona.
And the story goes through several predictive models saying Trump is poised to win. I will say, with the rapid escalation of censorship, it may backfire. It may actually help Trump. It's one thing when you slowly censor people and people question whether or not it's happening. But what we've seen over the past week has been one of the most dramatic escalations in censorship I've seen in the past several years.
Oh boy, just wait until you find out about Stefan Molyneux and a bunch of other chuds getting banned. Bet you got mad about that. Can we get... Is Tim Pool on the chopping block for getting banned soon? That'd be great. I only discovered him yesterday, and I'm already sick of listening to him, to be completely honest.
This can go two ways. Without Trump's main supporters and biggest voices online, yeah, he might lose. However, the high-profile takedowns might actually scare people. Political correctness is not a fun thing. And we've seen even Bill Maher...
Why can't I say racial slurs anymore? Political correctness has gone too far.
...criticize it. I've only got a couple more references I want to point out. The other one is just something I've mentioned in the past few videos I've done of the dramatic escalation and rapid development of intersectional ideology.
Oh no! People caring about the plight of people similar to them or having problems in society? Oh no. Number of our news articles mentioning diversity and inclusion, which has of course gone up. Great. That's good. Number of news articles mentioning whiteness up. Number of news articles mentioning critical race theory up by quite a bit. That's good. We should talk about these things in society because, as the Joker says, we live in a society. And it's true.
People who are fomenting the political collapse, whatever you want to call it, whatever it is, I don't know.
Nondescript PHC says, political correctness is people concerned about not hurting people. Why is it bad? Well, it's bad for people like Tim Pool because they hurt people so regularly. They just think it's part of everyday life. And they're like, why are you stopping me from just living my life? Because you're hurting people. Stop it, and you can continue on your way. It's fine.
No, something is happening. We can all see it. And it's not getting better. It's just getting worse and fast. And that's just, you know, it's getting worse and it's getting faster. It's getting worse and it's getting worse faster than before. The last thing I'll add to this is that many people might say that this is, it's been referred to me as inside baseball. You know, a lot of people don't know what's going on. There's someone I follow by the name of Amanda the Jedi. She's a Twitch streamer, smaller YouTuber, 27,000 subs. She does YouTube content, movies, entertainment, games, sometimes political stuff, but not really. She recently made a comment on the YouTube smear against YouTubers, in which they implied Philip DeFranco was part of the pipeline to the far right. And when I saw her tweeting about this, I said, when you get smaller YouTubers who are not in the culture war tweeting about this, we can see it's expanding. It's pulling in more people. Beyond that, we saw a couple months ago, Rick and Morty creator Justin Roiland tweet about this university woman. He said, extremism is bad no matter what ideology you adopt. However, while I would agree with Justin Roiland, he's clearly on one side of the culture war on this issue. Because the professor was talking about something having to do with, I don't know, what is it, whiteness? She says, when I hear a white person say this, I'm thinking, this is a dangerous white person. This is
what they're saying is, he didn't even reference it. She said it was basically about when someone says they don't see race, it concerns them for obvious reasons, because if you don't see race, it probably means you don't see racism. You don't see how race, despite the fact that it is a social construct, how it affects our everyday life and how your race might offer you some sort of advantage or how someone else's race might give them some sort of disadvantage, rather. So that's what that was about. And he seemed to... I don't even know about this Justin Roiland thing, but she was basically saying, like, you should care about race because race cares about you, basically, if that makes sense. Like, it's great to not try and view the world through, like, a racist lens, but to ignore the fact that a lot of people do, and these things affect people, is to bury your head in the sand. That's basically what was being said.
a white person who is going to need to deny my reality or something like that. That is intersectional ideology that is dominating the extreme left. Justin Roiland came out opposing that. Justin Roiland makes a TV show about a scientist and his grandson going on wacky adventures.
He turned into a pickle. It's the funniest shit I've ever seen.
Justin Roiland is not a culture warrior. He's not political. He makes jokes.
What? Have you seen Rick and Morty? There's some, like, political shit in there. Like, what? What? There's a whole episode where Rick ends up in, like, a bunch of fascist dystopias. What?
But even Justin Roiland has been pulled into this. The point I'm trying to make with all of this video is that, when I saw Eric Weinstein's tweet about something happening, I completely agree. I don't know what it'll be like, how bad it will be, or what will come after, but it is going to happen. Imagine, I guess if you were to take Eric's word for it, something like the financial crisis. A dramatic upheaval that negatively impacts people for a couple of years, and we eventually move on with things being a little different. But I want to make sure I stress to Eric's point, I don't think millennials have actually recovered. I don't. The economy is doing well, but...
There's an episode where Rick and his granddaughter beat up a neo-Nazi. That is true, yeah. I think they're saying, like, X gonna give it to you. That's playing, and then it's like an end credits gag. They beat up a neo-Nazi.
Millennials aren't getting married, they're not having families, and they're living at home. These are remnants of the financial collapse. It has not been resolved. And what's happening from these kids living at home with no families and nothing to do, they're turning to socialism and far-left ideology.
Oh no, the current system has failed people, so it makes them go back to the drawing board and look at other systems that might be more beneficial to the working class? The horror.
Saying the world is unfair, they did everything right, and it's still not enough. And I think that's why it's primarily millennials who are pushing this, and Gen Z is actually kind of flipping the other direction. It's because millennials came of age at a time when the economy was destroyed. And so now they're looking at the system as corrupt, indefensible, and in need of change. I don't think we're actually out of the financial collapse's woods yet. I think it's entirely possible that in 100 years they say, whatever period we're in right now started when the financial collapse happened. Or the Great Recession. When in 2008, I remember...
I feel like it would start... Oh boy. It's complicated. I would say 9/11 is a good point to start. Post 9/11... was a domino that kind of fucked a lot of shit up, right? So I'm gonna say that.
I remember trying to apply for a job.
Or even maybe the 2000 election, which of course fed into the response to 9/11.
Dishwasher. I was, high school dropout, broke, and I needed whatever money I can get. And I went to this small hole-in-the-wall little restaurant, and the guy in front of me with his resume was wearing a suit. He was in his 30s, and he had lost his job, and he was going to take anything. Many of these jobs saw an opportunity to
9/11 was created because of our Middle East meddling. Yeah, I get it, but you could do that. It's always arbitrary when you try and like you could take a line back from Trump to the alt-right rising in America, to Obama, to the response to George W. Bush, to back to 9/11. You could track that all the way back to fucking Napoleon and earlier. Like, you could go all the way back and be like, wow, Napoleon marching across Europe and taking over so much led to a lot of countries becoming allies, which led to tensions in the 1914 when World War I broke out, which of course led to economic destruction for for Germany, which led to the rise of fascism in Germany, which led to World War II. World War II led to the rise of the United States as a world superpower, including Russia, which led to the Cold War. You can always go back and find another domino that led to what was causing now. It's always a bit arbitrary to decide, this is the box that this period is in and whatever, but
hire overqualified people or more qualified people as opposed to someone like me. And that put me off on a bad track. I ended up being homeless on and off. Ultimately, I pulled myself out, but most people didn't. Most of my friends live with their parents, and they're entering their 30s. I'm not exaggerating. I know a lot of people who live in
the economy got fucked, and the capitalist class has continued to take value and benefit of the current economy away from the working class. I'm very fortunate in that I've been able to get this house. I live in an area with very cheap real estate, so like I have like a house with 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. Pretty nice place. I enjoy it. It's great, but I'm incredibly fortunate. A lot of people have been fucked over since 2008. Like, hardcore. And stuff has to change. It has to. This is unsustainable.
Apartments in big cities, but they're loaded with student loan debt. They can't find good work, and they're making trash wages. The economy may be doing really, really well, and maybe things will recover from here. But I think the Trump derangement syndrome is going to end with
Trump derangement syndrome. Oh, you guys don't like our racist, inarticulate, idiot president? You must be deranged. Genius.
People not caring whether the economy is good or not. They're already angry. They've adopted this ideology. It's escalating extremely quickly. And it's going to come somewhere. It's going to come to something. I think we'll see violence. I think we're going to see businesses being destroyed. I don't think the culture war ends with us just slowly forgetting about it. I could be wrong. I'll leave it there. Long video. Let me know what you think, and we'll keep the conversation going. You can follow me on Minds at Timcast. Stay tuned. More videos coming up. YouTube.com/TimcastNews at 6 p.m. I'll see you there.
Yeah, that's enough. That's enough Tim Pool for today. Fuck that guy. What a